I've seen salespeople, in my 20 plus years as a salesperson for the company, I've seen a lot of salespeople come in and some were successful, most of them were not successful. That you have to be able to ask for the business. You have to be comfortable in asking and talking about, it's not all just fun and, friends, haha, let's laugh about, talk about the baseball game. There's business too, right? And so you have to balance both. But you can't be shy to ask for, business.
Welcome back to the Sales Team 6 podcast, where we are going to be talking about how to build high-performing teams with high-performing leaders. And today's episode, super excited to have on Justin Tuchman. Justin is the prime example of the American dream. He started as a junior sales rep with just a phone book and $40,000 salary in 2004. And he's worked his way up to becoming the CEO and owner of Computer Integrated Services, or CIS. He's had over a 20-year journey, and he's consistently been his company's top revenue generator. He's maintained customer relationships for over 2 decades. He has experience expanding the business from New York to South Florida to Texas. He's demonstrated this ability to build lasting relationships across all sorts of different markets. And in October of 2023, Justin completed his journey from employee to owner, and he actually purchased the company that he helped build. And he's going to teach us some pretty incredible things about persistence. Justin, welcome.
Thank you, Zach. Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to have you.
The opportunity to speak with you. I've done a little research on you as well, and quite impressive person.
I appreciate that. Just a couple of cool, impressive, humble guys just gathered around the campfire telling stories. So you've got a journey from started as a sales rep, started making $40,000 a year, which back then felt more. I think at the time I was working for about $7.25 an hour. And now you're the CEO, and you've literally gone through every single level from entry level to buying the business. What were the key lessons? Like, how did you do that?
Thank you. A lot of people ask me since this change has happened three and a half months ago, what's different about the job? And I'll get to your question, but in a lot of ways, my job is the same. I am a hunter. My job, the most important thing, the most valuable thing I could do for my company is to go out and find customers, but it doesn't, starts with having conversations with customers, just getting as many conversations going around various customers' needs. So that's where it all begins. What was the question originally? What have I learned? Or I wanted to convey that really, my job from a junior sales rep to being the CEO has changed, but in a lot of ways it hasn't changed.
What ways, I guess, because it's easy to look at the title and the money and the surface level things. But at the end of the day, what is the job that hasn't changed?
Again, it's all about, going out there and finding companies, organizations, public sector. In our business, we're a service organization. We help all the companies, types of entities that I just mentioned, match and handle all of their technology needs. So, every business out there, every nonprofit, every entity has technology these days, whether it's laptops, it's mobile devices, it's computers, it's, security needs, it's, want to move things to the cloud. So there is, luckily for us, there's an unlimited amount of customers. Being, in that type of a position, it really, opens up everything. The sky's the limit. So we can go, I could talk to any type of company. Pretty much everybody could be a prospect for us. So that's helpful. To be successful as a sales rep, as a CEO is just, having the opportunity to talk to people and have people really open up to you and want to share, what their challenges are, what their needs are, what they're thinking about in, 6 months or a year, a few years from now. So really it's about getting customers and prospects, I should say, just to have an open and honest conversation with us. That's really like the most important piece of it. We have a good reputation. Our company's been in business for 30 years. We have referenceable accounts in all the industries. We have people that will say how much they love us and how great we do. But getting customers to open up and say, I'm going to share with you some of our challenges. So that's the most important piece.
At every level, whether you're entry level or CEO running the business, at the end of the day, it's about talking to people and just building those relationships.
And, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we got to listen. You listen more than you talk, because customers will actually tell you how to sell to them. If they get talking, you listen to them and they tell you what's on their mind. They tell you what they're concerned about. They tell you what keeps them up at night. So listening and then being able to turn that into what you hear, turn into a, proposal, some ideas, some ways we could, channel that into to help them. That's the key.
And there's so many people out there, when you hear these really successful people, these leaders that people just want to follow, and these people that build successful companies, they all just seem to have this incredible ability to just completely open up, take off the mask and just be there, be open. And at the same time, I think you meet some people out there that they don't have that ability, right? They're just, and I don't know if it's gotten worse over recent years, but why do you think there's so many people out there that are unable to open up?
Well, I look at my customers as friends. I try to build a relationship with them where we are friends. And the truth is, I speak to our customers and our prospects and on a regular basis, more than my friends sometimes, because, we're working on projects or we're working on support, and you actually become a part of their team. And you want that. You want them to think of us and think of us as like a partner, not, a vendor or, someone that they don't want to deal with. So it's really important that our, the customers think of us as, like somebody that they want to talk to, and I always felt like in sales, people do business with people they like. And if they want to talk to me and our team, then we're going to be better off. If somebody has a type of personality that people don't, aren't either intimidated by or they don't like, they think are annoying, that's going to be you're not going to be a successful salesperson, at least in the service business. If you're selling a product that the product sells, that's different. It's a different type of sales, right? You're selling shoes or jackets. The salesperson may be good and it would be nice, but if they're not, the shoes are what you're buying. In our business, IT services, they're really buying a service, and the service is provided by the people. So the people have to be the type of people that the customers want to deal with and talk with and see. You used to, back when we started, it was on site more. Now, 99% of the work we do is remote, but still we're talking, we're dealing with them, interacting. So it's important that people that we have the type of people on our team, me personally, and everybody that we hire that are people that are likable.
I think that's huge. As the cliche goes, know, like, and trust are really important. There's something I've noticed, and I see this sometimes, where somebody will spend a lot of time and effort becoming friendly, right? Becoming friends with somebody and getting someone to like them. And they do, right? They get to that point where they'll go out drinking after the convention, and so they've got that personal relationship, but that doesn't always actually still lead to business. And on the other side of it, you've got someone that's all business, but may not be very likable, may not be somebody you want to spend time with. So how do you balance the two, or how do you mix the two, where you get that like factor, that friendship factor, but you also make it relevant to still doing business together?
That's a good question. I've seen salespeople, in my 20 plus years as a salesperson for the company, I've seen a lot of salespeople come in, and some were successful, most of them were not successful. That you have to be able to ask for the business. You have to be comfortable in asking and talking about, it's not all just fun and, friends, haha, let's laugh about, talk about the baseball game. There's business too, right? And so you have to balance both, but you can't be shy to ask for, business and ask for an agreement to be signed, because again, it's not like they're giving us something that they don't need. It's a mutually beneficial agreement. If all sides are not going to win from it and find value in it, then it's not going to be it's not going to be successful long term. So, when we're doing, putting deals together, working on closing a deal, I'm not ashamed or scared to say, can you sign the contract? I mean, this is how we're going to be able to move forward with you and provide everything you need. And there's also some other tricks, not tricks, but, things, end of the quarter, end of the month, there's always little things you could put out there to maybe add a little bit extra pressure, but you have to have that good rapport with the people you're talking to for that to really stick anyway. But can't be scared to ask for the business.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're, to phrase it a little bit differently, what you're describing is, when I teach this, I always teach, there's a lot of people out there, they want the tactic, right? What's the script? What's the magic line? What are the 5 secret words that'll get anyone to buy anything, right? Everybody wants that surface level thing, and there's a place for tactics, right? Maybe asking at the end of the quarter, might have a higher conversion rate than asking at the beginning, potentially. But what I always tell people is who you are is infinitely more important than anything you say or do, because people can feel it, and everyone's always asking for what's the surface level tactic. I'm like, if you have the right intentions, but if you're coming from that right place, if who you are is authentic and aligned and you're open with the person that you're wanting to do business with, you'll find the right words, you'll find the right tactic. I just think that human element is so critical.
Yeah, if you're not proud and confident in what you're selling, you're not going to do very well at it. And, fortunately for me, I always felt very good about our company and our services, and, that helps. I don't think I would be successful. I don't think I would work at a company that I didn't think they had a good product. Like, you can't sell something that you don't believe in. So, no, that's important as well. But once you believe in something, you got to feel good about, the services we're offering.
Yeah, definitely. I always say, this quote, I don't know who initially said it, but someone said, the difference between a good salesman and a good con man is a good back-end product. And I always thought that was a very interesting take on it, because, it's like you're saying, right? Having something that benefits somebody and having that actually solves their problem. And these days, I think you could probably get away with more of the con man stuff, probably back when you started. But these days, it's 2025. Right now, we're recording this on January 17th. It's like, if you do, if you have a bad product or you screw your customers over, everybody knows about it, right? Everything's out in the open, right? Everything you're seeing is always being done. So one of my operating principles is nothing to hide, nothing to prove. In other words, everything that I do, I'm okay with people seeing, because they're going to see anyway.
Sure, exactly. And I think transparency, it also, people feel good about that, when you share, what's going on, what are the dynamics on our side, why maybe is it taking a little while to figure out, whether we can meet a certain price, or, and sharing that information, people feel like they're part of the process. And I found that it's worked well in our favor for, customers to understand all the dynamics, whether it's, even something as simple as when I was a sales rep, there's a certain profit margin I would need to be on for me to get any commission. And I've shared that with customers. Like, if you squeeze me, like, I won't get paid on this deal. Don't you want me to make a little something on this so we could, sharing that information, I think, builds the relationship. And again, it's all about relationships, but, transparency, I think, is a good thing.
Definitely. And that means a lot, considering you have 20-year-long customer relationships. There's people you've been able to keep on as customers and keep those relationships of 20 years. And you don't get that by not taking care of your customers and by doing a bad job. And something that I just want to highlight something you just said, because I think you said something really, really powerful that could have almost, like, it was, to you, I think is very, very normal, but I think a lot of people are scared to do this. And you referred to it as transparency, right? And just being completely open and saying, hey, here's the reality. Here's what's going on. If you do this, I won't get paid. Right. And just being open about things that maybe are a little uncomfortable to talk about. Right. Especially in America, we have some weird hang up with talking about money. There's some people that just, for whatever reason, just can't do it, can't talk about it. I think it's culturally wired into us not to talk about it. But, I think there's something that can be so powerful when you just can be really open and say things and admit things. One of the things I learned a while ago is, if you ever want to build quick trust with somebody, give an admission, admit some sort of vulnerability, admit some sort of insecurity, admit something that's actually uncomfortable. And as soon as you do that, you're not trying to hide it anymore. And all of a sudden the person says, oh, this person's very open, this person's honest there. And it just gives the other person permission to do that as well. So I think that's so powerful. What you just said is just be willing to just be open or be transparent and talk about those things that maybe not the most comfortable to talk about.
Yeah, it goes back to, building that level of trust. I mean, customers are taking a chance to go with a company like CIS. We're a small company, 30 employees roughly. We compete against some of the global systems integrators, the companies that everyone heard of, Accenture and Deloitte, KPMG, and all these, massive companies. It's a lot safer for a company, a buyer, an IT director, a CIO to say, you know what, we're going to go with the big name, even if the project fails or it goes over budget or it takes twice as long to, I'm not going to get fired for going with one of these big companies. If I choose CIS and there's a problem, I may lose my job, or it's a lot more risk. And that's true. But, when you trust with the customer that no matter what happens, even if things go sideways or there's a problem or, software had bugs or, things that we can't control, you can still be successful in many ways, and good communication and handling adversity and handling problems and, in a way with integrity and honesty, then, I think people really appreciate that. And again, these buyers are spending or putting their reputation on the line. So, we want to make sure that they feel good about their putting their, reputation on the line for us.
I almost think that would actually be that can be a good thing, right? That could actually be beneficial for both sides. Because I hear a lot of stories about, they bring in one of these mega companies, or they get some off the rack training and they just get processed through like a number, right? They just get processed through something that almost could have been automated, right? You could almost gotten the same training from ChatGPT and YouTube and saved tens of thousands of dollars. And I hear that a lot as we brought in this generic consultant, this generic trainer, and they taught us this generic stuff that didn't stick. And so one of the things, because I get the same thing, right? I'm on the smaller side. I'm still on the beginning side of my career, all things considered. But to me, that's a good thing, because I cannot afford to have anybody say anything bad about me. I cannot afford to have somebody say, we hired Zach and it wasn't good. It didn't work. So because of that, it's actually motivation for me to go above and beyond and do everything in my power to make sure that they get the result and I over deliver on what I promised. So I think that's actually, to me at least, that's a good thing.
Yeah, we use it to our advantage, right? We're going to give you that white glove boutique style support. You're going to be like the big fish in our pond, not to use cliches, metaphors, but that's really true. Unless you're like the biggest companies out there, those global companies that we, talked about, they don't treat like the mid-sized customers the same. And for us, we treat them like they're our most important customer. We try to treat everybody like that. But so yes, I do agree. We could, use that in our advantage. The fact that we're smaller, more customized, more flexible. You're going to call us, you're going to get me. I'll give you all my customers, my cell phone, and I tell them I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call me, text me, whatever. I'm here for you. They're not going to get that from our competitors.
We'll talk to somebody that cares about their customers, or actually cares bigger than that, though. I can just tell you care about people, right? Just as a whole. And I think correct me if I'm, but you just seem like the type of person that even if you weren't doing this professionally, you would still, that love of people, that caring about people is still, has that just always been who you are, or did you have to work on that or develop that later?
I think it's who I am. I think my personality has been pretty consistent, always positive. Good attitude, like to make people feel welcome and warm, and always introducing friends to friends and inviting people and trying to create a network. So yeah, I think that's that is my personality in general.
If you go back through your journey, if you were able to sit down with yourself 20 years ago, the very day one Justin, what are the lessons that you would teach him or teach your younger self that would help you get there faster, or at least with less pain?
People have asked me that, and what have you done differently? And I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I really, I had like kind of a methodology that I was started with, and it was taught to me to just, cold calling, be out there as much as you possibly can. If, make hundreds of calls a day. If you get a few appointments out of it, that's great. If you do that every day, at the end of the month, you'll have 40, 50, 60 people you can go talk to. And just going out there and talking to people, even if like there's no match, like maybe it's the wrong person, whatever it is, every interaction you're learning from. So, that's really been consistent, and I've really that's followed me throughout, working in the New York City, in our headquarters for over a decade, and then, moving to Florida, spending 6 years building out a presence in the Southeast, and then, almost 4 years now here in Dallas, Texas, Central region. I really kind of kept the same methodologies in many ways. Now, of course, you get better. You learn, you learn your industry more. You learn, you feel more confident talking about things that, you weren't as confident as a young guy starting out. So, but I think that kind of stuff really just comes from experience. Nothing is more important than experience. Learning, in a book or classes. I'm sure there's techniques and sales, stuff that maybe you teach, and that could definitely kickstart and get people going faster. But I think experience is really what gives the ultimate confidence, in what I'm doing at least. But what would I have taught myself at an earlier age? Maybe to, not waste as much time on opportunities that you really kind of knew were not going to go anywhere. That's probably the biggest, lesson, because, obviously time is, the most valuable thing we all have. So, if you waste time on a deal and people that are nothing's going to come of it, then you could probably make a better use of the time. So that's probably one thing. And, not to, hold on to something that is not going to ever go anywhere. But, there have been customers that or people that I've talked to for years, never did any business. And then all of a sudden, 3-4 years later, I give them a call and they remember me and, what's new? They just got promoted to, IT director, and, they were this person. And, so it's still, I don't think I ever wasted time, but, I guess, just maybe picking and choosing where you spend, each of your day's hours, not to, the big picture. It's good to make contact with people and stay in contact, and because you never know what's going to happen. But, in any given day, maybe to focus a little bit more the things that are the most, have the most potential. Yeah, that's one example.
Yeah, I have a client who referred to that. It was actually a really big problem on his team. They call it happy years, which is a term you probably heard.
Yeah.
And it's where someone will spend, the rep thinks they're working the prospect, but it turns out the prospect is getting worked by the rep for 6 months. So how do you actually avoid that, or how do you actually make that call, right? Because it's one thing to want to be optimistic and be positive and see every opportunity through, but how do you know where to make that call of, this may not be viable, or this may not be a good use of my time?
Yeah. So there are certain types of people that have the happy years and everything is, it's all positive and good. But I think it's really just understanding and really having like a true, heart to heart with customers and understanding, what their needs are and asking them. There's no problem in asking, like, is there, real opportunity here for us? Do you think that there's, you have to ask the hard questions in sales. You can ask the hard questions, you're going to know where you stand. And that's the ultimate, is to know where you stand and focus on the ones that you really do have an opportunity. So, I think it's asking the hard questions. I think when reps have a lower base salary and more commission, maybe that'll train people into not just, going with the happy years and, yeah, I'm going to get my salary. I don't care. I mean, even if the deal doesn't close. Throughout my career, I actually had opportunities to like raise my base salary and get a lower commission. And I always said, no, keep my salary the way it is. I'd rather just work off commission, like, as the majority of my package. And that was presented to me many times. And I, every time said, I'll stick with a low base and same commission.
Keeps you hungry.
What's that?
Probably keeps you hungry.
Yeah, exactly. That's because if that's where your revenue is going to come from, then yeah, it keeps you hungry. It keeps you, you don't just pretend that you're doing something. You really want to be successful and efficient. And, yeah, I've seen reps that came to our company and had, big salaries, and they were enterprise sales reps, and, couldn't generate any revenue. Did they want to? I'm sure they wanted to, but they were making a pretty hefty salary. So even if they didn't, they could pay their bills and they could live, and they weren't going to go get rich. But, sometimes that's enough for people. So, I think giving people the ability to make money or not make money based on their performance is a good way to get the most out of sales reps.
What do you look for then when you're looking to hire sales reps and build a team and build your company? What do you look for? Do you look for the experience and the technical skills, or do you look for the personality and the drive? Kind of, what's your mindset when it comes to team building?
I think for sure I look for a positive attitude. Attitude is something that is more important than anything, I believe, for sales, for engineers, for project managers. I mean, having somebody that is, again, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, enjoyable to talk with, has a positive attitude, a can-do attitude. That's what I look for. I mean, we haven't, again, I just took this role on 3.5 months ago. So I'm not ready to start building out a team. I don't, right now I sell, our president sells, our CFO, and, manage a bunch of house accounts. So you have one or two other like inside sales reps. So we're not a big sales team, and I'm not sure I'm going to go and hire a big one. I feel like, maybe we, figure out how to service new customers and create, new opportunities from what we have. And if I need to bring in more project managers or, but when looking to hire anybody, not just sales, I think that, attitude is the most important.
That's the thing that you can teach skills.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach the technical. You can teach, like all the skills are trainable, but attitude is the one thing that you either have it or you don't, and you can't get it from someone else. You can't have it imposed upon you. It's got to be from within, which is
100%.
So let's talk about persistence, which I know is a big theme for you, big thing for you. I guess, first of all, what does it mean to really, it's one of those words that we all know, but like, what does it really, really mean? What does being persistent actually look like?
Persistence. I think persistence in our industry is, continue to do what you're doing as part of your effort to get in front of people. So I personally liked cold calling. I had a lot of success with it. So I was cold calling every day. I still cold call to this day. As a CEO, I'm calling people. Some of them are cold. Some of them are warm calls. Some of them are people I met 5 years ago. Persistent when it comes to cold calling. Other people may have other ways where that they can, create opportunities, whether it's going to networking events or industry events or, just being consistent with a certain strategy or a certain methodology, I think is the way I would understand persistence. But also calling people and calling them again and, not making them upset. It's a fine line. People, but you want them to think like, geez, why does this guy keep calling me? Like, maybe he has something interesting to talk to. Maybe he's worthwhile. Like, he keeps calling me. All right, maybe I'll hear what he has to say. After 10 calls, maybe they're like, all right, maybe he's really got something valuable. So I think that's persistence too. Not when somebody hangs up on you, you don't just say, oh, all right, they're not a prospect. You try to learn one or two things when you're on the phone with them, even if it's 15 seconds, try to get some type of information. And then when you call them back next time, you incorporate that into your quick pitch if you can get them on the phone. And also being persistent with, people as well, like the prospects is important. And it works. Again, I can think of many examples that, I have people that I've been talking to for years and never got anywhere. And then one day the opportunity arises. So to me, that's persistence.
Persistence is just staying consistent and doing the most important thing, right? Which in any business, any sales is talking to people. And it's so funny because we're in the age of AI, early age of AI, automation, technology, all this crazy stuff is happening. But what we're just describing is it's the basics. It's literally the fundamentals. And I think there's everyone's always looking for what's the shiny new thing, the new tech, the shortcut, the hack. But it really, really always goes back to those basics. Something that you said too is I find really interesting as well is, at every level, you're still selling, right? You're still cold calling. You're still doing the thing at every single level. And it reminds me of when I was in the Navy, I had a master chief and I kind of lucked out at this command because every Friday you'd basically go in, check in, take out the trash and be out of there before lunch. And I remember one day I showed up late from a medical appointment. And as I pull in, I see him, as Master Chief. And this is a guy that's done stuff that you've read about on the news. Like he's not a very high level guy. I remember seeing him. He's taking these guys a couple of trash liners and he's walking out to the dumpster. I'm like, oh, that's supposed to be my job. And I get into a panic and I jump out of my car and run over and he throws them in super casual. He's like, hey. I'm like, oh, sorry, just blah, blah, blah. He's like, hey, no worries. He goes, you're never too good to take out the trash. He winks at me. And I just remember that and seeing somebody that's done, again, high profile things that we've read on the news that we would consider an American hero, to watch this guy take out the trash with a smile on his face and say, nobody's ever too good to take out the trash, which is just and that just really stuck with me because it's, at every level, there are fundamental things, there are basics that always need to get done. And that's just so cool to hear you say that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Back to, my job is really the same as it was 20 plus years ago. Just, finding people who will give us some time on their calendar to have a conversation.
So what's your thought process? You're sitting there, you're pounding the phones, going through call after call after call, probably getting rejected, getting hung up on, getting maybe some people being rude to you. I imagine that's, probably nothing. Your skill set may improve, but some things never change. What is your mindset when you're sitting there and you're going and you're dialing and you're on the phone and you're going through that day in, day out? You do that mentally.
Well, I think they say that, if you're smiling on the phone, people can feel it through the phone. So if I'm ever in like a bad mood or had a bad feel good, or I probably won't do cold calling then. But if I'm, normal, feeling good, excited about what I'm doing, then it really comes through on the phone. So that's important. But my mindset is who can I connect with? Who can I speak with? Again, back to, the services that we offer will help every type of organization. Restaurant chain, anybody who has computers, which is everybody's. It's just, finding, good people that are, that have some needs and they are willing to have a relationship with us and, build a lot of our customers have been with us 20 plus years. So, that's really important for us. We always say, we're in this for the, the long haul. I like to say life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And, we're here, our goal is not to come in and do a project and, then leave. Our goal is to come in and become your partner. We want you to think of us for all of your needs. And, then that's really the mindset.
Another way I hear that is it's not what can I get? Or it's not how much money can I make? It's not it's very much who can I connect with? Who can I help? What can I give? Which is
exactly.
It explains why you've been so successful.
Yeah, again, back to what I said earlier, that it's got to be a mutual success for everybody, for any deal, I think. If one person's doing great and the other one's not doing great on it, we may get a deal done, but it's not going to last long. The relationship is not going to foster into something greater. So I really feel strongly that it's everybody has to win to make a deal successful and sustainable.
Always back to just basic human skills is the ultimate skill.
I agree. The KISS rule that they taught us in, second grade still holds true.
Yeah. I think a lot of those kindergarten or first grade, second grade is a really rule, right? If we be nice to others, wash your hands, brush your teeth, wake up early. Like these very, very, everyone wants to complicate these things and go over, complex and what's the latest and greatest. But if we really go back to the basics, with almost everything, almost always solves. I've never seen a problem that can't be solved by going back to basics.
Yep. Yeah. Even you'd hear, a celebrity, have any recommendations for the kids, like the smart celebrity say, just follow your dreams. And, you think of that as like, oh, follow my dreams, never going to work. But I think that if you do follow your dreams and have, goals and think about them and envision yourself in them and, you can really get close to them, if not achieve them.
Absolutely. Especially if you stay persistent.
Yeah.
So cool. Justin, this was awesome. I really like your, it's been very insightful for me just to see that, things, best people, the people that really, really master this game are master the basics and stay consistent and just have that good attitude, right? From regardless of what level. So it's been really, really cool. I imagine there's a lot of people out there that are resonating with this as well. So if somebody wanted to connect with you, where can people find you? Sure.
I'd be happy to have any conversations with anybody who'd like to talk, or, I can just put my phone number out there.
Yeah, whatever you want. I'll put the links and the details in the notes. So wherever you want.
My phone number is 917-749-1320. My email is jtuchman, JTUCHMAN @cisus.com.
Awesome.
Website is www.cisus.com.
Excellent. To all that, and it was very generous and very bold putting your number out there. Nobody sending weird pictures or anything like that. So cool, Justin. Last question before we sign off is what's your message? What's your message to the world? What do you want people to know?
Think that back to the basics. Positive attitude, positive thinking is going to help everybody in everything they do, whether it's personal, business. There's really something there about being optimistic and being positive, forward thinking. We all have challenges, and I think we can't let the challenges get us down. We have to learn from the challenges, and we have to maintain that positive attitude.
Justin, this was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on, share your wisdom, your experience that can only be gained through actually doing it. I think there's a lot of people out there that talk about it, but this is the real deal. So appreciate you coming on.
Zach, thank you very much. I enjoyed it and wish you lots of luck in everything you're doing. And I know we'll be in touch, but if there's any other things I could help you out with, you let me know, and hope to see you around. I'm sure I will.